Hello, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show for September 12th, 2018. It's still a great year to be playing video games. I gotta find something good that rhymes with 2019, and I think about it every day of my goddamn life. With me today, Wes Fenlon. How you doing, Wes?
2019 pretty frightening.
Frighteningly good, hopefully.
Does it have to be good? Could it just be
I guess,
frightening?
like, it can mirror the sentiment we go into the new year with. Um, but there's a lot of
Scared,
yeah.
scared and in the dark.
There you go. Yeah, 2019 looking kind of frightening.
I was very frightened when I
Yeah.
just sneezed as soon as you started introducing this podcast. But thankfully, I had my mic muted. But I was just like, look of
Welcome
terror on my
back.
face.
Yeah, we're back. I was not here last week because I was in. Wait, what were we doing?
You were recovering from
Yeah,
PAX, I think.
geez, it's been a blur. It's a very busy time of year. I went to PAX West, saw a lot of great games, but worked the weekend, worked long days, and
All by yourself.
yeah, it was very lonesome. But still got to see a lot of cool developers and industry folks I know, and hang out with our video guy Paul, who's a funny guy. Ate some good food. Seattle's a fun city. It's very Amazon-y now. Maybe that's just
They own all of it at this point, right?
yeah. Maybe
It's
that's
all
just the way I
Amazon.
perceive it. But clean glass everywhere, um, and I was very close to. It was awesome because I was really close to our hotel was right next to the Cinerama. Do you know the Cinerama, Wes?
I know of it, yes,
Yeah, cool
but I've
theater,
never been there.
and they were doing like a cool rewind series. So went and saw Blade Runner on some nice film.
The original.
Original Blade Runner. Yeah. I don't remember
Sweet.
which cut, but yeah, it was a good cut. And they followed
If
it
there
up
was
immediately
if
with
there was no Harrison Ford narration, you're probably all right.
yeah, no, none of that, none of that. I don't think I've ever even seen that one. But anyway, that was cool. It was also next to what are they called? Top Pot Donuts. Have you had these? You're a food guy.
No.
No?
I've only
Damn.
I've only been to Seattle a couple times, and each trip was I think 24 hours. So
Ah,
I've
really?
I've really spent very little time in Seattle.
Oh
Yeah,
man. Well, I don't know. We should find a reason to get you to go to a
but
PAX
I
or
like
something.
a good donut, or actually I like a bad donut. I'll eat pretty
Yeah.
much any donut you give. You hand me a donut, I'm gonna eat it.
Donuts. Yeah, so I had one every morning, and I've been trying to be healthy, but it was like, hey, gotta have one. It's a big. They had good coffee too, so it's just a hell of a good way to start PAX, and with a gut ache, and a caffeine buzz. Anyway, I'm
All right.
back from PAX, recovered after that, and it's hit the ground running because a lot of good games and crazy news has been happening. Did I introduce you? This is Wes Fenlon. He's a
You did, I
features
think.
editor.
Let's just pretend you did anyway.
Yeah, people know you. People know you. You're a regular. Yeah, some good stuff to talk about. I will say, I'm going to say right now, but before we get to the end of the show, show's going to be like a bit irregular, continually irregular for the next couple weeks. It's not just a busy time of year, but I'm going to be moving away from the Bay over the next couple weeks, so I won't be around to do the regular Twitch stream. We will have Twitch streams though of some kind. We'll be playing games. I think Steve and Tyler or whoever gonna play some stuff at the normal 1 p.m. Pacific time slot. So don't think we're not gonna be here. We're gonna be doing something. Just I won't be hosting the regular show for a couple weeks. But once we come back, mid October, should be all right. We'll also be putting out, I think, audio podcasts, and maybe doing like next week. I think we have to. I've been talking to Jared, and we have to do some kind of stream talking about uh,
RTX
the RTX
2080.
2080. So, because that's
Those
coming
are
out pretty
launching.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about that stuff and get Jared, our expert, to just say things at me that I probably understand 10% of. But yeah.
That's generous.
Yeah. And as you can see, like this place is emptying out right now. So I got a classy air mattress right there. Just empty floor, bunch of junk back there. If anyone wants to buy some stuff, I won't deliver. You have to come get it. Hit me.
This is not your personal Craigslist hour, James.
Find
What are
me.
you doing?
That was good. But yeah, while moving, I've played a shitload of stuff. Have you been playing stuff, Wes? Playing a shitload of stuff?
Only a little bit. I was away from my beloved PC all weekend,
Oh,
but in the past couple weeks, I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter, which I
yeah.
can talk about some, and a little bit of Dragon Quest XI. Not much Dragon Quest XI, but enough to talk about the PC version of it
Cool.
a little bit.
Well, why don't you do that? First of all, I want to know. No, let's go right into Dragon Quest. People got to know, how is the PC version? It's like this massive series in Japan. It's sort of like over the last decade becoming popular, more and more popular in the West. And it's the first like mainline PC release for the series. As far as I know.
First PC release, period.
Period. Shit.
If you're not counting the Dragon Quest Heroes games, which were if you're familiar with the Muso series, the Warriors series, as it's called in the US, that Koei Tecmo puts out, they basically just slap a brand onto the same, Dynasty Warriors, like kill a million weak soldiers model. So they did that with a Berserk a couple years ago. They did it with the Triforce Heroes, the Zelda one. I think there's a Fire Emblem Warriors coming out on the Switch, or maybe that already came out. I don't know. So they did that at a couple Dragon Quest games, but it's not a Dragon Quest game. They just slapped the art style and the enemy types onto that and put it out. And those are on PC. But this is the first legit Dragon Quest game to ever be on PC. Yeah.
Shit.
I guess unless you live in Japan and you play Dragon Quest X, which is the MMO, but they never release that in English. So, there's a few caveats here and there, but for anybody listening to this podcast, most likely this is the first Dragon Quest game you would ever be able to play on PC.
Awesome. About time.
And the port is pretty good. Cool. It's bare bones, like it doesn't have a lot of options, but thankfully, because the game is built in Unreal Engine 4, it has a very good foundation on PC. Like it performs pretty solidly, and even though they don't have a lot of menu options, you can do you can kind of fix all the basic stuff you would want because it's an Unreal Engine game. Like you can just adjust a few things in an INI setting to like make sure you have shadows and resolution set properly, and like if you want to tweak the anisotropic filtering and stuff like that. And people are already making like reshade plugins for it to make it look a little different. It's a really pretty game. It has this great cell shaded art style and just very luscious like grass and stuff like that. It's not going to blow you away like The Witcher or something, but it looks really nice for what it is. So yeah, the PC version's pretty good. Otherwise, it's very much a Dragon Quest game, which I think our reviewer was kind of lukewarm on it, gave it a pretty low score compared to a lot of the reviews out there. And I have not played nearly enough of it to form a really substantial opinion. I've only played about 3 hours of it, probably, out of a 70-hour, 80-hour, 100-hour game.
Jesus Christ.
But I really love the look of it. I love the way they kind of stick to, I don't know, like people talk about Dragon Quest as being this very traditional series, and a lot of times use that as a criticism of it for not evolving more dramatically, like the Final Fantasy games or something like that. But I think they actually do a lot of little things subtly in between the different games. They add new systems in that integrate really thoughtfully with the combat of the characters, and they think about what a character's personality would mean for how they fight and that kind of thing. They think very deeply about how everything fits together, and so they make these very considered, kind of quiet games that have some silly humor and kind of your traditional JRPG stories. You're not going to be shocked that you play like a chosen hero out to save the world. That's what all of these games are going to be pretty much. But what they do inside that framework, I think, differs a lot between games. So I've heard great things about this one, including even some surprising story beats. So I'm looking forward to chipping away at it, probably very slowly over the next 8 months, and maybe I'll finish it by middle of next year. I don't know. We'll see.
I kind of like playing RPGs that big, that slowly. Persona, I'm still not done with Persona 5, and maybe never will be. But I love sort of living with it, and just once a month I'll be like, Sundays for Persona, and just spend like a whole 8 hours playing nonstop, and you'll get usually a complete arc or two within that, like almost an episode, and it's enough. It's enough, and it's fun to sort of like remember my life, what I was doing while I played Persona over the course of this year or two.
6 months ago.
Yeah. It's a fun way to play those games because they are, I think, for a lot of people, maybe too one note, at least like mechanically or systemically, or just predictably JRPG in a lot of ways, to just like hammer out in a couple, like a week or so. But yeah. Sounds
I'm still holding out for Persona to show up on PC. I'm hoping someday.
Yeah.
Someday that it does.
Yeah, that would be my jam.
But sure. So you and I were talking a little bit about Dragon Quest and Slack, I think last week, and you were saying you tried to play Ni no Kuni 2 and you checked out because it was just too consistently, overwhelmingly happy and cute for you.
Yeah, it's on brand, man.
And you were worried the same may hold true for Dragon Quest. I haven't played enough to be able to tell you if that's the case, but maybe someone in the Twitch chat can comment and tell James if Dragon Quest gets sad enough for him at some point.
I can handle it. I just like with Ni no Kuni 2, especially like the heavy Studio Ghibli influence. I expect like went in expecting some of the darkness that comes with those films, unfairly probably, because those games films are very good at doing, at first glance, what might look like just very regular animation and very whimsical and bright, but they get pretty, they also address some pretty dark themes, and maybe Ni no Kuni 2 does that eventually, but it's just like a little too, like, especially for those first 6 hours I played, 7 hours, it was just a bit too one note.
Very cheery, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I never played the first game, which didn't come to PC, but I think the first one begins with your mom dying tragically, and you being like an orphan kid or something. Like, I think the first game was a bit darker, had a little more of that Ghibli tragedy in it. So maybe that one's more your speed.
Ni no Kuni 2 has probably the most fucking strange first hour, like the most unexpected first hour in any game in recent memory for me, and I almost don't want to spoil it for some people, but like just go if you don't give a shit, just go look up like the first hour of Ni no Kuni, and it is not at all what I expected. One of the characters in your party is just like it's so fucking hilarious. Anyway,
it's a weird game.
Yeah, it's a weird game. Dragon Quest 11, decent port, good fun if you're a genre fan, especially. Sounds like.
Yep. Yeah, I think if you've been waiting to play a Dragon Quest game on PC, you should absolutely play this one.
Cool.
It's going to be what you want from it. And if you've always been curious about Dragon Quest, there's a lot of good material out there right now about the series. This game is very much made to be sort of a celebration of the 30th anniversary of the series. And so it has a lot of references to the older games and little touches that are kind of nostalgic, backwards looking. So there's right now, after this game has come out, a lot of people are writing, either retrospectives or kind of like lists of like, here's how to get into Dragon Quest, or overviews of the series, that kind of thing. So if you've kind of always had Dragon Quest on your backlog, wanted to play one of the games, now's a good time to go out there and read which ones people suggest playing and pick one up for your iPhone or DS or PC, whatever you want to play it on.
Cool. You've also been you're still hunting monsters from last I heard.
Still hunting monsters. Yeah, I think I cracked 50 hours last night.
Damn, dude. Nice.
It's not actually that much. Like, one of my friends that I've been playing that game with put in well over 100, within the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
but I finally finished the story last night. The
Oh,
final
cool.
battle against a giant baby dragon, elder dragon. I don't know. It was a baby, I guess, but also giant and spitting lava and blue flames and all kinds of nasty shit at me. But we took him down.
Right on. Right on.
So
Congrats.
I'm really excited for the continuing releases for that game. Like they just put out Devil Joe, I think, who's one of the famous older Monster Hunter monsters, has been in a bunch of the older games, and they added him in. So we're still, months behind the console versions of the game,
Yeah.
but I'm still nowhere near fully, geared up with the like high end gear. So I'm okay with those updates coming every few weeks.
Right on. Yeah, last time I played was with I think you before PAX, and took down Nair Gigante, which was great fun. And it's nice to know there's still just a whole lot left to do in that. It was kind of it's the easiest game in the world to just hop in and just mindlessly hunt and hang out. It's a lot of fun to just kind of grind out the same stuff. Especially the weekly hunts are a lot of fun to do. The special hunts.
I feel like what some people get out of Destiny,
Yeah.
I found uninteresting in Destiny, the idea of like having to run the same missions over and over again. For some reason, I'm totally into that for Monster Hunter. And when I thought about doing it in Destiny, I was like, why would I want to replay those over and over again? And I still don't have any interest in doing that. But in Monster Hunter, I'm still all about doing it, and I don't really know why that is. I don't know why one interests me more than the other, but I am excited to kill a bunch more Tobi Kadachis to finish off my Tobi Kadachi insect glaive, and kill Nergigante a bunch more to get his armor and all that stuff.
I am too, Wes. I am too. The only problem is, I also have Destiny 2 Forsaken, which is pulling me in that direction too. Now, like, I'm a sucker for these games with meaty progression and fun repeatable tasks that are meditative over time almost, and I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
I think maybe for me there's something thematic. I mean, maybe I just really like playing Monster Hunter. Like, this is the first one I've played. I enjoy the combat a lot. I like playing it with friends, but maybe the theming of it just makes it work for me more. Just the idea that, okay, yeah, I need to go hunt this certain monster a bunch to get its parts that have these certain attributes that are good for making, this certain type of equipment. That just feels like a really good, tight thematic connection between the mission that I'm repeating and the action of just repeating it, and like what the reward for that is. Whereas I think a lot of games that have you repeat something over and over again, there's not really a good like narrative reason for the fact for why you're doing it over and over again,
That's true. In Destiny 2, it's so arbitrary. Like, they just make up resources and make up reasons to do things, and you're still like the singular chosen one technically in this story,
right,
among like dozens and dozens of other chosen ones. So I hate when that stuff doesn't jive, and it's interesting because, like, maybe I'll start talking about PAX West. Have you said your feel about Monster Hunter? Still enjoying it?
I think that's I think I'm done.
Gotcha. Right on.
Not done hunting monsters.
No,
just done
I want to hop in with you sometime soon. Yeah, PAX West, like Anthem. I talked to, oh gosh, I'm forgetting names right now. I talked to some lead producers of Anthem, BioWare's like sort of shared world shooter that is doing a lot of monster. Mike Gamble and Mark Dara, monster.
So okay, so
things.
how Destiny is Anthem?
I think it's more Destiny than Monster Hunter by a wide margin. But what I appreciate what they're doing is because it's BioWare, they're much more interested. Well, they're not, I would say that the story matters more maybe than it would to a studio like Bungie, where the story is always good with those first couple Halo games. But in Destiny, it's just like a mess. In Anthem, you are one of many, and like the shared world versus the solo story that happens in the Fort Tarsis hub. They try to really keep what happens in that kind of locked away as part of your story versus the shared world stuff will stay consistent with what happens in the in Fort Tarsis, regardless of what kind of decisions you make there that are different from your friends. And the way they talked about sort of the shared world events had me a little bit more excited than previously. Like I'm still not really necessarily sold on the theme and setting yet. It feels very fairly like sci-fi original series premise.
That's not the highest praise.
No, I mean, like, it's like we have robots in this world. There's an artifact left by the gods or an old race that makes worlds, and anything can happen. And there's like a bad guy called, are they called the Scorn? Literally, doesn't Destiny 2 have the Scorn now? Anyway,
Jesus.
it's so like none of the I'm sure the nuance will come, or I hope the nuance will come as I get to play more and like kind of uncover what the fuck is going on.
Is it really that hard to come up with a sci-fi theming that isn't an ancient race has left all of their advanced technology around for us to find? Like,
I don't know. I would think so. When I talked to these guys, they said it was very deliberate that like, yeah, they kind of knew it's almost like a BioWare cliche at this point, but it fits with like what they're going to do with the ongoing support Anthem is going to get. It's all kind of pie in the sky right now, but the way they talked about it was as if like, okay, you're not making individual choices that affect the world. It's not like you can do the Fallout 3 thing and say, I'm going to blow up that city with a nuke, and it will happen for everyone. But if as a player base, like there's a mission that requires you to complete some objective or do something very difficult, and not enough people do it like as a collective player base, then BioWare can say, okay, the consequences of that are a permanent change to the world in this way. And that sounds pretty ambitious, but they also like, I don't know, they talked big. They talked big because we ended up on the Fortnite cube and the ongoing like storytelling as you do.
Always on that Fortnite cube.
Because like the support Fortnite has been getting, not just in terms of like patches and bug fixes and like very mechanical game updates, but in the way the story is unfolding in an interesting way, like week by week. Even that, like, and Fortnite's the last game you would expect to like need that or benefit from it or get that kind of treatment. But we landed on the cube, and this, if you don't know, the cube is like this artifact that appeared in Fortnite's map, and it moves for everyone within live servers, and things happen to the cube, and like it's been printing these runes and leaving these anti-gravity zones all over the map, and theory is it's going to culminate in this like season 5 live event, much like the season 4 live rocket launch that like broke the sky open. Something's going to happen, and like when we talked about that, they were like, yeah, but Epic is doing it right, and we want to do something similar to that with Anthem by having that first layer of storytelling, which is just like what you get when the game comes out, and like small updates, or excuse me, like the traditional like season-based sort of downloadable content, big drops. Those big drops, happen every couple months. And those will be free. Everything's going to be free, from what I'm told. It's all going to be cosmetic DLC that you'll pay for.
All right. Well, I'm skeptical, but interested.
And they also said that like, okay, Epic has a second layer, which is those live events that sort of happen for everyone in the world. And Mike Gamble mentioned something that's very vague but ambitious. We might have a layer beyond that is constantly there and constantly changing. So I have more faith that like I look at Destiny 2 and the pacing has been the worst thing about sticking with that game. People just burn through the content and they have to wait months for even like a small update or weeks for a small update. And if Anthem can do something much more consistent and constant that like keeps the conversation going at the very least, or people questioning or theorizing in the way that Fortnite's cube has been, that's exciting. Anyway, that's one thing. I talked to those guys at PAX. I played a bunch of games at PAX. and I'm gonna get
What
that
was
list.
your favorite thing that you played?
Oh my gosh, that's tough. That's tough. A lot of great stuff, and for different reasons. But I think, predictably, two very like Left 4 Dead style asymmetrical multiplayer games got my attention. One being the Blackout Club. If you don't know the Blackout Club, I believe his name's Jordan Thomas.
Yeah,
Of
worked on BioShock 2,
and he's kind of known for his
Thief.
yeah, the haunted mansion level in Thief. Is it a mansion? I've never played it. You know, he's known for like his kind of his a respected game designer known for horror in a lot of ways.
Smart guy.
Smart guy, really fun to talk to. A little nerve wracking when he was staring over my shoulder while I played. But the Blackout Club is it's first and foremost a cooperative multiplayer game. There are sort of some competitive elements, but that's not really the highlight. Where you play, I think four young people in like suburbia somewhere, and something is going on in this neighborhood. Like at night, shit goes down where your parents and all the adults and everyone are like brainwashed, and they put on weird, they unknowingly like put on these weird robes, culty, creepy robes, and like sleepwalk down into the depths below the city and build like are carving out this like weird, I don't know, industrial creation that there's a lot of mystery there. There's a lot like, you know, we don't really quite know about it yet, but it's got this.
It's pretty much the plot of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, right?
I forgot about that. Holy shit! It's like that, but much creepier. And so that's just like the thematic premise. What you do is like this neighborhood is this giant suburban neighborhood with this massive like industrial maze below it with like, you know, hastily carved out like tunnels and like these big weird rooms full of strange machinery. And your goal like within this neighborhood and maze, you always start up top as far as I know, as these four kids, is like it's basically like a stealth game, where you go in with certain gadgets and an objective, because you want to prove to the adults that like something's going on when they're awake, when daytime comes around. And so you kind of sneak around this neighborhood while I think they're called walkers or sleepers, are these blind adults wearing these creepy robes like I talked about, and they're sleepwalking, and they can't see you because of that, but they can hear you, and like this really creepy animation where they're sort of like half awake but clearly being puppeted by forces beyond their control. And they like seek you out if you make too much noise. There are drones, kind of like camera drones, moving around the neighborhood. There are, I forget their name, but there's also like there are very few like awake adults who are conscious of what they're doing and like are implicit or complicit in this big scheme. And those guys can see you. They're very rare. The worst thing is, so as you like, one objective we got when I was playing with Jordan is like we had to go into this house and look for evidence of a break-in. So you get out your camera phone and you're like looking for evidence and taking pictures. And if you make too much noise, it counts as a sin, which as you commit more sins, there's like sort of an invisible meter that will send the worst monster in the game after you, called what is it called? The Sight, I think. The Sight.
The Boogeyman.
It's their Boogeyman, and this monster is really interesting because it's like It Follows, if you've seen that. It will only pursue the person with the most sin at first. So it's this invincible monster, invisible and invincible, and the only way you can tell it's coming is if you press a button to close your eyes, and then you will see it, this red silhouette wherever it is in the world against like this like darker red background, a very noisy kind of the back of your eyelids color, and that's the only way you can track it. It's really creepy because it's basically a trade of information. There's a lot you need to pay attention to. It's a stealth game, so you might be being pursued by someone, sleeper, or trying to sneak around, but at the same time, you might have committed enough sin to send that guy your way. And so you close your eyes to like shut out the rest of the world that you very much need to pay attention to in order to tell where they're at. And you can lose them and so on. But It's this really malevolent, creepy force that once it, and that's what's worse is once it gets you, if it does, it will then move on, much like the It Follows monster, to the next biggest sinner.
And will it? I forget. Does it? I saw some video of the game in action. Does it turn you into one of the brainwashed
Yeah,
people?
yeah. It turns you like the first time it gets you. I think it turns into a brainwashed sleeper, so you're kind of incapacitated. You can knock your friend out of that state, I believe. I'm not exactly sure how because I didn't even get to that point. But it's this really cool like escalation of horror that you don't get in or I have not experienced in like a cooperative game like that. There's even like a multiplayer system I didn't even get to see where you can be like an evil kid or something. Like you can invade someone else's game and like spy
Yeah,
on them.
I saw that. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
like control. I think you can call in the site.
Yeah, yeah,
The villain, I think, is what you said it was called. You can
yeah,
call him in or call in other. You can basically alert the bad guys to where the human
yeah,
players are. You can narc on them basically.
yeah. You can be a narc. And Buttface Jones, we're talking about the Blackout Club. It's an upcoming co-op horror game. Yeah, and so it was a really cool bite-sized demo that like I'm sure like some interesting stories can come out of that. Like all this growing intense pressure and tension as you like sort of sneak through this really creepy neighborhood. And beyond that, like Jordan was teasing like people don't even know about everything about the game yet. And he was like really excited to talk about it more. There's like some hidden mechanics and features and such that he's totally hidden from the public. So I think there's going to be some betas and such happening soon. It's going to open up to public beta soon. So more people will be able to get to play that. But it sounds really cool.
Awesome. Sounds really promising. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't spend. I'll run through a couple more. Artifact, Valve's card game. Surprisingly, I think my big takeaway was I played it, and it was much easier to parse than I thought. You look at it and you see those 3 boards, and you go, "Oh my God, it's gonna."
It looks really intense.
It looks
for a
really
card game,
intense.
yeah.
But it's surprisingly not that difficult. I wrote about it and called it something of a combination of Uno with like 3 simultaneous games of like Hearthstone. I mean, like, and that sounds, it's still fairly complex, but it's not nearly as like out of your, over your head as you think it would be. I picked it up. I'm not even a card game guy, and I picked it up in like 20 minutes, like the basic
How would you
principles.
compare it to Magic if you ever played Magic?
I mean, like, it's like Magic and Hearthstone in that you
Have cards.
you have cards, but you have like character cards, hero cards, and creeps, which are like basically just smaller like minion type cards that have health and attack. And at the end of each turn, like whatever's on the board will, rather than like choosing who to hit, it's just whoever's facing each other on the board will just trade damage. So it's almost simpler in that regard. It's just
But does that mean like positioning where you play cards matters?
Yeah, that matters a little bit more. So there's like that stuff, but that's not hard to like understand for me. It's like hard to maybe keep track of on a higher level of play, but it's the UI and the information that they surface and sort of the hierarchy of that, is very well done. The only number you really need to pay attention to on each board, if you have a problem, is if like your tower, because that's like the thing you're trying to protect, get your minions and your heroes between or to guard, is like the red number next to your tower. If your tower is taking too much damage, you probably need to like look at that board and go, what can I do here? Should I allocate resources from a different board, or is there anything else? So it's really not that crazy. And I say Uno because you can only play cards of a certain. You have to have a hero down of a certain color on each board in order to play cards of that color to support that hero. So it's just a simple color matching like idea combined with.
How many colors are there?
I think there's like 3 or 4 maybe, something like
Okay.
that. Green, red, blue, and black, I think. So I was like, okay, all right, I got this, and it was like a lot of fun to sort of think about the board's relations to each other once you got into it. And I won't like go into depth explaining how to play this game, but don't worry about it. Like it's gonna be fine. It's coming out on my birthday too, November 28th. $20 I'm excited to check it out. Like I like the idea of not having to necessarily buy expansions from here until the end of time, or being able to craft card decks a little bit more like deliberately with the Steam Marketplace. It could be just as much of a money sink as Hearthstone in the end, but I don't know.
I think it probably will be.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's designed with making money in mind for sure. Yeah. Metro Exodus, played more of that. Played another level. It was this really cool, creepy night forest, and it opened this part. I'll just mention this, like it opens up on this like scene, or at least there's a part where I got to. It's just massive, sprawling dark forest in front of you, and all of a sudden, like as you take a couple steps into it, you see like a pack of wolves or rabid dogs just like take off like across the small path in front of you, and you're like, oh my god, those guys are scary. And then you're like, what's chasing them, or what are they chasing? But they're being chased by a big fucking post-apocalypse bear, and then they just disappear into like the mist, and you're like, I have to go through that, I guess. And they are a factor. It was a really cool kind of sneaking through that, and
makes me think of Annihilation. The
Yeah.
animals
Yeah.
in that book / movie are very horrifying.
It's very similar. And I'm realizing now, looking at this list of topics, that I'm going to be talking a lot, Wes. So please ask questions.
You got lots of games to cover.
Yeah.
One of the games you wrote down was Industries of Titan.
Yeah.
Which I have seen the art for. I think I follow one of the artists or the creators of that game on Twitter, and they post really cool little like kind of voxel like cityscape gifs of their games, kind of a part of their game world. It looks really cool, but I don't really know much about it. Is it like a city builder sim kind of deal, or what?
That's part of it. And for those of you who don't know, this is Industries of Titan, and it's from the developers Brace Yourself Games that made Crypt of the Necrodancer. This is a very different kind of thing.
Oh, I did not make that connection.
Yeah. And Industries of Titan, it is a city builder. They weren't showing that part, but from what I understand, it's a cyberpunk like it's like a late capitalism cyberpunk city builder where corporations are just basically vying for control of these mega cities, and control comes with money. But you can also the shadow government, like overseeing these corporations, allows corporations to go to war so long as they pay their sanctioned war bonds. So on one level, there's like this city builder, where you are building factories and expanding control and your territory that way. But you can also just like invest a lot of money into building ships, which is where sort of this FTL combat layer comes in. So you'll build a ship, and well, from a top level, you build a ship, and you can like approach a corporation, check out their ship, and say, I want to go to war with you. You'll have to pay a war bond, literally like pay money, or else the government will be pissed at you. You give them some money, they're like, yeah, go for it. And you enter you see two ships next to each other, and you see sort of like a cross section of them, and you see little dudes running around manning stations, and you can pause the action and like choose where to shoot, and it's very FTL. And like they told me, yeah, FTL is definitely like our starting point. What makes this game different is that when you're building your ship, you can customize its layout 100%. So it's a grid-based system.
Building your ship to begin with is something you don't do in FTL.
So it's this grid-based system, very simple, like to understand once you understand like the important aspects of, or like the primary resources each ship needs. And you place a cockpit, you place beds for your crew, you place power generators, you can place fuel and battery reserves, med bays. You have to think about like everything your ship will need, and you have to have money for it too. What's important, extra important here, is that like the positioning matters. So within your ship, like if you place everything right next to each other, targeting works on a great grid-based system too. So what I first learned the hard way was that like in combat, I had my power generators, my fuel reserves, and my batteries sort of like all bunched up in like the back, because I was like, that's like That's like the engine room, you know. We won't worry about that. But there are, of the guns that my enemy had, they had these lasers that would target 2 contiguous squares and then 4 contiguous squares, and they were just able to like wipe out my reserves and my power generator all at once, which made me unable to shoot or really respond at all. Like it was like, oh shit,
You got wrecked.
yeah. So you got to think about where to like. You should really spread things out, or at least like spread them out enough. You have to really think about like, okay, if they have these guns, I need to think about keeping my fuel reserves away from maybe my, my power generator away from my batteries, my backup batteries, because we need one of those to like keep going. We need some power source to keep going in case one gets taken out. So
it's like in Star Trek where they have the auxiliary bridge down on like the lower part of the ship. You got your nice fancy bridge up on the saucer section, but sometimes you got to split up.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And it's like really fun to sort of think about that, and offensively too, because rather than just like in FTL, I believe you can sort of target a general area, or excuse me, like a system,
a compartment,
or whatever.
Compartment.
Yeah. Here you literally like target physical squares that there might be nothing there. You can target nothing if you want, and that can actually be helpful because if you destroy just a tile, it means the crew can't walk there, so they can't maybe get to the place they need to fix something, fix their weapons. So you really want to think about like pathing of the crew members too.
So don't just have like one corridor down the middle of your ship that connects to each room, because you could just blow a chunk out of it and it's ruined.
So you kind of want to you have to really think about how to customize your ship and what to outfit it with weapon-wise based on like who you're going up against.
That's cool.
And you have to have money to do that. So
I had no idea this was the same team that did Crypt of the Necrodancer. That's
still doing squares.
Very, very different. Yeah.
And I'll finish up here quickly, but one more layer of that, which has me even more intrigued, is like I mentioned the city building aspect, and you're building factories to like produce whatever. It doesn't, I don't really quite know what you're making. But every building you can enter in the same way that you do your ship and customize the components of that building to optimize it to either, like if it's a factory, we didn't get to see that, but basically what I was told is like there might be like a whole production line or like literally a conveyor belt system, almost like Infinifactory style. Do you know that game? Yeah.
Yep.
Where each building is almost like its mini version of one of those, where you can really increase your production if you think about, if you have the money to, first of all, like buy enough things to, like systems to like interconnect to make it more efficient, but also if you're just smart with how you place, your conveyor belt and all the components that are manufacturing whatever you're making. So there's a lot going on there, and it's going to be really interesting.
That game sounds intense, but I was interested in it purely based on the art, and now I'm far more interested in it to know that it's like a weird combination of SimCity and FTL, and I guess throw in some like Judge Dredd Mega City vibes.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited for it. Like I had no idea what to expect. One more. Another asymmetrical multiplayer like horror game is called Last Year the Nightmare. And I hadn't heard anything about this before, but it had this huge booth like on the top floor at PAX, and people were just crowded around watching because it was incredibly fun to watch. It's a Discord exclusive launch game too, supposedly coming out this fall. This is a sort of in the style of something like a Dead by Daylight, like Left 4 Dead. It pits 5 teens, high school teens. I had to really clarify that, against one malevolent force. And when I don't say killer because much in the there's one player playing a murderer, so to speak, but they have something called Predator mode, where anytime they are not visible, and if you have to be a certain distance, I think maybe from the teens, but anytime they're not visible, they can despawn and respawn again as long as they're not visible as one of 3 like killers. And these 3 killers have like, one is the Strangler, which is almost like the Smoker from Left 4 Dead. It can pull in people from a distance. It's a little weaker. One is the slasher, which is just very much like a sort of, I guess, like all around Jason style axe murderer. And the other is a brute, this big hulking guy who can like literally pick kids up and throw them like across the gymnasium. It's amazing.
So pretty much the brute from, or the tank from Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, pretty much the tank from Left 4 Dead. And while they're in predator mode, they can lay down like these big bear traps or open trapdoors if a character walks over them, if a player walks over them. And they're like, those are like laid out strategically because the goal of the 5 teens, and they're very like weak and fragile, and they all have their own sort of class. I didn't get to see or experience much of that, but there's like a medic and sort of like science guy, and they need to, at least in this scenario, wander this like darkened nighttime high school and look for gasoline to like power this stair car across the gymnasium so they can escape through the rafters. And I don't know why they have to go up there, but it's a horror movie logic, so whatever. And as they are searching through the high school, like there's a lot of incentives for them to split up in classic horror movie style, to gather more crafting materials at once, to cover more ground at once, and like find the gas canisters wherever they're hidden. And what happens is, or if you have a very creative killer, they can do things like, I saw things like the classic scene where one character's running down a hallway away from the killer, right? And they maybe like turn a corner and like find a place to hide real quickly. They think they're safe, and in like Dead by Daylight, you might be, because you can track their position. You can always hear them. They're never going to despawn. But as the killer in this game, they might despawn, run ahead, like, because you move very quickly in Predator mode and you're invisible. Run ahead like to somewhere where you think they're going to be, spawn in, and like when they turn the next corner, you might be there, like axe in hand, and just die, you know. Of course, like the teens have plenty of ways to fight back. And sticking together, there's like a lot of, you know, they can craft stuff like Molotov cocktails or tasers or whatever that can actually, you can kill the killer. It's difficult if you're alone, but together it's like a bad idea to just attack a whole group of teens at once. So it's not like you're too overpowered, but what it means is like you have to be really crafty as the killer in this mode, and like be really creative and like try and separate them, and you know, spawn in, poke them a little bit, and then like spawn out, try and cause some chaos. It's
I like
pretty
the
funny.
distinction that you know, the format is very similar, like you said, the Dead by Daylight, but I like that distinction that the killer is just an evil force, not just a singular character, you know, that they have all these other options available to them, spawning in and spawning out and flying around super quickly and laying traps and all that stuff. It definitely adds like an extra dimension to that game. And just knowing not only can they, I guess they're unkillable when they're not in human form, right? But like the fact that it's not just that they're unkillable, but it's that they can kind of be anywhere at any time, whereas in these other kind of games, like they're only going to be in one place at one time. You know, they are in a human form and they can't, you know, go invisible or whatever and fly across the map and attack one person and then the next second be somewhere else. So
it's really funny. Cool. Yeah, it makes it super watchable and pretty comic in a lot of the ways that like those. And the presentation itself is like it's like, I think it's set in 1996 or something like that. So they kind of nail the vibe of that time pretty well. And each teen is like a stereotype: the jock and the nerd and you know, the cheerleader and stuff like that. So it's pretty funny in that way. But that's, you know, sorry, what?
It's interesting. I feel like horror as a genre typically lends itself to being scarier when you're alone, you know, when you feel like vulnerable, and that was kind of the feeling that most horror games went after. Something like, you know, classic Resident Evil, like people argue that the tank controls make those games scarier because your movement is very limited and your perspective is very limited. You don't have great control or view of a room, you know, you can only see this limited area. And I think a lot of horror games build on that isolation. And yet it seems like the most popular horror stuff we've seen in ages has come from Dead by Daylight and these like that has like really led the charge on this idea that multiplayer is actually a really great avenue for horror. That the idea
Surprisingly.
of being, with other people, but also isolated and super vulnerable is both good to play as a horror game and makes for a super watchable, entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
streaming horror game. So I think we're probably going to see more games like this
Yeah,
build on that idea in the next year or two.
definitely. And for anyone just tuning in, this is called Last Year the Nightmare. I don't think they have any official like recent trailers out there, but it's coming out this fall. Yeah, Discord first. Discord's doing a game store, so it's one of those launch games, I believe. I don't know if it's launch or not, but this fall. Yeah, so those are of the many things I played at PAX. Oh, excuse me, World of Horror as well, which is it's kind of hard to describe, but I won't spend too much time on it because we got to move on. But I'll sell it this way, and I think you can play an early build or like a demo on itch.io. But it's described as an adventure game roguelite uh, with RPG style combat, like JRPG style combat, turn-based combat, heavily inspired by the work of Junji Ito. Um,
Oh, is this the one that's the 1-bit? Is it a 1-bit aesthetic?
yes, the
Or
black and
do I
white.
have that wrong? It's black and white.
Yeah. And so I played a one scenario. Like all these scenarios are going to be randomly generated. So you'll have episodes where you might like the episode might be the one I played at least, like you're wandering like an old high school again, looking for the components of a ritual to send like a monster called the Scissor Lady back to hell. And so, you kind of do these like you don't really like physically move yourself around, but it's much more like text inventory in that like you click on these prompts that say search high school or search this or do this, and you might like be randomly hit with FTL style, I guess, like while you search for something, like a meter will fill up, but during that time you might get hit or like with a random encounter, and you'll be given a couple options to respond. And yeah, it's a crazy mashup of genre, but a lovely, like a really, really cool style. Like I think it's coming out on Switch too, so it would be like a perfect for that. I think.
It looks like an old Mac game,
Yeah,
like 1985 Apple Macintosh
definitely.
game or something.
So it's really, really cool. That's World of War. Oh gosh, I talked a lot longer about those games than I thought, but PAX West was a really cool thing. It was cool to be at the Fortnite Summer Skirmish Finals and see those happen live and meet a lot of creators. I'm always happy to go, even if it feels like a lot of work while I'm there.
I forgot another game I played
Oh yeah.
around the time you were coming back from PAX. I went and played Forza Horizon 4
Oh shit, yeah, totally.
in your stead, and I put up an interview site last night from playing it, but I didn't really write much of my impressions from the game in that interview. I let the interview kind of take center stage, but I can talk about some Horizon because I know
Yeah.
you are a Horizon fan.
I literally wrote about Forza because we're doing a thing on like some of our most anticipated games left in the year, and Forza is mine. So you got to play some, yeah?
Yeah. If you have specific questions for me, you can hit me up with those and I will answer them. One of the reasons I decided to make my interview, just post the interview instead of kind of doing a write up of the game, is I didn't have too much to say about it because I played about 2 hours and I was like, yeah, this game's really good. It's Forza Horizon 4 in a new setting. The seasons are cool. Like, it's just good. Like you can tell from the moment you start playing it, like, yeah, the cars have a really nice sense of weight to them, but it's still fairly forgiving. It's not as hardcore as mainline Forza. But then you can go into the menus and there's like 10 million options for adjusting, your wheel like loadout and your tires and your engine capacity and just like all these little bells and whistles that you can tweak if you want to that will impact the feel of your car in some way that I am not, nearly enough of a a car nerd to tell you about, and didn't have enough time to try out in the game. But yeah, it just feels like if you've played Forza Horizon 3, especially, this, you know exactly what this game is going to be. It's just a new setting with more stuff, pretty much.
Oh gosh. Well, one sec, my video went out. But yeah, it's wow, I fixed that. A demo went out this morning, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think a demo just went live within the past couple hours, I think, on Wednesday. Yeah. So if you are interested in Forza Horizon 4, you can play the demo on both PC and Xbox, I think.
Yep. I downloaded it right before the show. I was hoping to play a little bit, but for those of the people who don't know, like, did you get more clarification on how the seasons worked? I haven't like read up on it. So are these like in game is time passing quickly, or is it week by week, or what's up?
Yeah, so if you don't know anything about Horizon 4, the big addition in this game is it has fully distinct seasons that affect the game world. All four. It's got all 4 seasons, and you will see, both visual changes in the world, like in summer, the trees look really nice and everything's grassy, and in winter, obviously, there's lakes are frozen over and the trees are barren and stuff like that. But it will have impacts on racing as well. He gave me some examples. The most obvious is you'll be able to drive over some bodies of water that are totally frozen. In the summer, there will be there's one river in the game that will just be completely dried up, and so you'll be able to drive down the riverbed, and there's like an event that will take you on a race through that. And then there'll be other rivers that will be lower, so you can drive across them. There'll be places where in the spring or the fall, when it's rainier, you might have standing water, puddles that'll create more mud, that'll kind of change where you want to be driving on the track, and also affect, do you want to go cross country and leave the road? In the summer, it's going to be a lot easier to do that than it is in spring, when the grass is a lot muddier, stuff like that. But the way the seasons will actually progress is it's synced online, so everyone will experience seasons the same way playing the game, and every season lasts a real week. So
gotcha. Okay.
I like, for example, first week of the month, it's summer. After 7 days, all of a sudden it becomes fall. After another 7 days, it becomes winter. After another 7 days, it becomes spring, and then you're back to summer. And they are going to they have like some really aggressive update schedules planned for the game. So every week the season will change over. That will affect a few events, things going on in the game world. Every month they're putting out an update for the game that will have like a couple hours of new stuff to check out. And they're going to be releasing new cars all the time. And if you buy like the ultimate edition of the game, you get the car pass, where you get a bunch of new cars. You can also like go into the in-game shop and buy them with in-game currency, I think, if you have enough of that. And I think the shop will be like refreshing on a weekly cadence along with the seasons. So it sounds pretty cool. If you're the kind of person who like crews up with other people and likes to race, I think the seasonal thing will work really well, because you'll have that kind of impetus to be like, oh, the season changes over on Sunday, let's like get together and like do all the new events, in fall on Sunday morning, or something like that. So that stuff looked really cool. I didn't get to really see it through my own playtime how kind of dramatic those seasonal changes feel. They have like a fun montage race at the beginning where you get to like run through all the seasons in like 5 minutes, but that's obviously not how the full game is going to play out. Right. That's just kind of like the tutorial.
I'm really excited for it. Like, the third game was one of my favorite driving games ever, like next to Burnout Paradise. Just very easy to hang out with. Another game that's just like perfect for hanging out with buds in, a la Monster Hunter, and just doing whatever the hell you feel like. So I like the idea of a more aggressive update schedule. Plus the cadence of seasons sounds like just a good excuse to maybe not like play it nonstop, but with Forza Horizon 3, it's kind of eventually saw and did enough to set it to bed. But I like the idea of like popping in once a month with a couple people and seeing.
One of the coolest things I learned in my interview, and I don't know how dramatically you'll feel this while you're playing the game, especially if you're not, really tuned into the car tuning aspect. But the game now has a temperature system, which they did not have. That was not a system that existed in Horizon 3 in their engine. So now temperature will change not only between seasons as you'd expect, but it changes actually over the course of the day because it's based on it's based on time of day. It's based on the sun, I guess. I don't know if they have a real sun simulation, but they must if they do time of day, right? So it'll be, different temperature in the morning and then it is at night, and temperature will affect your tires and the way tires interface with surfaces in the game. So all of the surfaces have a awareness, I guess, of temperature if you want to express, the game code in that way. So the way your car drives on different surfaces will vary depending on the temperature of the day of the environment. So your car will feel different in winter than it will in spring, even if you're not explicitly driving on a sheet of ice, versus the road. How much it's going to feel different, I can't say, but there's at least the potential there for that to be the kind of thing that if you really obsess over the details of this game and like get a really, really good feel for how the cars move, you'll be able to tell.
That's awesome. Especially if I have no doubt that this will be the case, that their assisted driving suite of assisted driving tools, like you can kind of tune the difficulty and simulation to be the level of simulation to be whatever you like. So, I mean, that sounds like a nice little wrinkle to dink around with and think about, especially if it looks nice too. I like the idea of sun hitting the icy roads.
It's really pretty. Yeah. I mean, I was playing it on an Xbox One or an Xbox Dev Kit, I guess, but I think it was running like 4K HDR. Like it looked gorgeous.
Cool. Yeah. Is that this fall or is that next year sometime?
It's out in a month, less than a month.
Wow. Oh God. Okay. Right on.
Yeah, like September 28th is the if you pre-order it, I think you get it, a few days early. Right. And then I think October 2nd is the full release date.
Cool.
So yeah, really soon.
Hell yeah. Let's go driving, Wes. Let's go drive.
Let's do it. Let's drive.
Kill some monsters, go for a nice drive. Just bounce between all of these
if only you could do that in the same game.
Right? Someone do that. Oh my God, that's got to happen someday. Forza Horizon plus Final Fantasy plus Monster Hunter, make it happen. Cool. We're running low on time, so I'll try and like jam. I don't know. I want to talk about Tomb Raider and Destiny 2 a little bit, and then we'll wrap up with like a couple questions. How does that sound? Sound decent?
Sure. The only thing I'm interested in Tomb Raider is Laura's selfie mode.
Yeah. If you're unaware, Andy Kelly, our reviewer of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, blew up the internet as he tends to do with an article. Let me find it here, and I'll link to it in chat. There's a photo mode in the game that allows you to, regardless of context, change Laura's facial expression. So he put out this article of Laura doing some pretty awful, funny things and smiling. Even made a little Instagram account for her to frame it nicely. But yeah, pretty funny. As for the game itself, his review sums up how I feel about it for the most part. It's a fairly positive review. He liked it quite a bit. There's that article. I will say, this is very much what you'd expect if you played the last two games, except what redeems it, and I've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, is the variable difficulty modes. Like, you can set puzzles and exploration to hard, combat on easy if you want, but now that I'm deeper into it, the combat is better, I think, because you can basically Arkham Asylum it this time around and enter and exit stealth mode as opposed to just being seen and all the enemies know where you are all the time. You can really tinker and toy with them quite a bit. It's still my least favorite bit, and it doesn't happen a lot, thank God. But the dungeons are so much more interesting and creepy and strange. Lara is bearable this time around. She's still a pretty awful person, but they've given her a bit of levity, so she's not just like a super serious, I gotta finish what my dad started, like vessel. She has emotions, even if they are, even if she's just illogical and dumb and bad. And I think the premise and the overall scope of the game is just it's expanded in some really interesting ways. There's like basically this hub city now where you can interact with people, locals for once, before you destroy and pillage for good reasons or bad reasons the temples surrounding them and that influence their culture.
So the hub city isn't the one that you drown and
no,
kill everybody in?
No. Yeah, this game opens with you just drowning an entire Mexican village on Day of the Dead, no less. So great. And Laura's just like, oh man, I did that. Oops. That's like supposed to be like the driving force, or like the moment that like makes her question, should I be raiding tombs or not? And she, to solve that problem, continues to raid tombs in order to prevent the problems she made from raiding tombs. Anyway, it's pretty silly.
Isn't that a good metaphor for us just continually repeating the same mistakes in our own lives? I drown villages of people all the time.
Yeah, just it's an everyday thing. But I think this is like again, this feels much more, if you turn the difficulty of the puzzles and dungeon or exploration platforming to hard. The level design is like good enough to, and if you've played enough games, it's all like telegraphed simply enough that you know what's an interactive object versus what is not, and piecing together like what to do is very satisfying in like a tactile way. It's like these big contraptions like that will never get old to me. Just like figuring out how to pulling a switch that moves a platform that I need to time with some weird like oil and fire mechanic to burn a rope that drops a cannon. There's like some really elaborate contraptions that are like don't make any goddamn sense, but they are just fun to tinker with and satisfying to solve. So I think this is like, if you've totally been like, if the last two games were bad for you, you didn't like them, like at least like pay attention to this one. Maybe it'll probably go on sale eventually, like a big sale like the last two did in the Humble Bundles or whatever eventually. So I think this is the closest to Tomb Raider, old Tomb Raider, classic Tomb Raider that this new series has ever gotten.
That excites me. Like I think I could play through and just kind of whatever to the combat stuff, but the idea that the environments are actually really fun and interesting to explore and puzzle solve through, I would crank that up to hard. No reservations, and like puzzle my way through it.
There's nothing I've hit yet that's like it's not like Braid levels of like, oh god, what the fuck do I do? But I'll sit there and okay, you tinker around, make a couple mistakes, and get it eventually. It's just like good video game like comfort food in that way when it's doing that stuff. I've also been playing a shitload of Destiny 2 Forsaken. This is the big expansion that came out September 4th. And to some of my thoughts on that, like talking with Tim and Austin and everyone else who was a big Destiny head around here, I try to like temper the way I think about it right now, because when Destiny 2 came out, I thought it was the bee's knees, and it was. I stand by the fact that I think Destiny and Destiny 2 are excellent shooters. Like the combat is a lot of fun, and that is expanded quite a bit in Forsaken. The new enemy types have some fun. Like they're very like, they have similar archetypes to what you've seen so far, like the guy that crawls towards you and explodes, and like here's the sniper type, and here's this, and yada yada. But they are much more numerous and like weak. So you'll see like it reminds me of the classic Halo days. It never plays quite like Halo, obviously, but where you get that sense of scale. You like open up on this big swath of like wide open world, and you'll see just like enemies littering the landscape, and you're like, okay, how am I gonna go through this? And just kind of carve your way according to your own whims. And you like, and this expansion, you get like a lot of AI teammates that will help you. So really, like the scale is interesting, and so you have all these warring factions, and it's just fun to see that. I think in terms of like the progression, which was the big problem people had with Destiny 2 when it came out, is like, oh god, they hit a brick wall. They run through everything and they're done, and now they have to wait 3 or 4 months for the next big chunk of content. Or like, I don't know that the pacing of that will change. Like I don't. There's nothing to suggest that it will.
So you're kind of in the honeymoon period right now, but maybe in another week and a half, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, we're done again."
I get the feeling that is going to be the sentiment pretty shortly. Like the raid's coming out Friday, and Bungie did say with this next like round of updates that they're trying to do more frequent updates that aren't as necessarily like big in scope, or at least production value. Like they're not going for big CG cutscenes. They're like trying to refocus and say, oh, what people really want is just more interesting shit to do and newer weapons and like a new area here and there, but not necessarily like these big cutscenes that we spend months making. Like that, we don't really care at this point. So we'll see how that goes out. But Forsaken right now, at least in the day-to-day, like it gives you more reasons to play more often. Because it gives incentives. It's like for every activity now, like every activity that's ever existed, you have all of like Destiny 2 to draw upon, all of the expansions to draw upon, and it will give you challenges and bounties and all these things that reward you with better gear and the promise of better gear, or at least spins on those activities that all help you out in the end, or give you something new, whether that's like better gear or tokens for the Eververse store, which is the cosmetic store, or Jesus Christ, some kind of token that like gives you access to a weird in-game like public event that that gives you some crazy reward. There's just like a lot more. It's all sort of smoke and mirrors, but it is satisfying to accomplish these things. It's basically like recontextualizing hard mode for a lot of activities, or giving you incentives to play with people, and then giving you more ways to get gear more often. Whereas in Destiny 2, it was like you had your weekly milestones, which is like 6 ways to get better gear, and you would do that in a day, and it would wait till next week, and so on and so on. But there are daily challenges now. There are like bounties you can get from every single location, and all of that will help you in some manner. Also, the progression streak, at least like to get from like light level 500 to whatever we think the raid will be, I think 540, 560, it has been like drawn out, not artificially, but it's going to take more time to do that. And I think it's more fun to do that now because these piecemeal upgrades happen more often. There are random rolls that you sort of tweak your all gear comes with random rolls is what I mean. So rather than static drops, once you get a specific hand cannon, you might get another drop that comes with better traits that support a build you're going for.
So they changed that, because that was one of the things that they did away with for base Destiny 2.
Yep.
The randomness, they went all static drops, right?
It's back, and that's like super nice. Especially nice is like the weapon system, like basically no longer are power weapons tied to like the shotguns or snipers tied to a power weapon slot. You can get them in any slot. They require specific types of ammo, but what it means is like I can just roll with like 2 shotguns now if I want, or a sniper rifle, and actually use those weapons, as opposed to in Destiny 2 when it first came out. It was like it was hand cannons and SMGs or machine guns. It was like pretty boring. Now you can really, like my playstyle right now is like hand cannon and shotgun or sniper rifle. I just love like running directly into a crowd and bop 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 and just dissolving them and then getting out. That's really great. Also great is the Dreaming City. This is like the end game area, big area that you unlock after the story, and it is actually like super challenging and takes a lot of time to like explore. It has tons of mysteries and like weekly updates that add new challenges with this really like this cool tone of like space magic, It's very World of Warcraft / Dark Souls in a way, in that like you have the hokey sort of storytelling of Destiny 2, but this totally cryptic, strange, illogical seeming area, with a lot of mystery that like players are still figuring out like how to do stuff in it. And that's like really, that's the best part of Destiny is when something will arrive without any announcement, or it'll just be there, like the Whisper of the Worm quest. It's like so much excitement generates around that stuff, and that kind of stuff makes the world feel more alive and interesting, I guess. There's a lot going on in Forsaken like right now that I think it is absolutely worth playing if you like shooters and sort of like simple RPG progression, or at least by RPG I mean like gear collection, loot collection. It is still like one of the best shooters you can play. Like the new bowgun type is amazing too. It's like feels so good to use. But I am not like necessarily sold on the fact that it's. I am almost certain within a month or two, players are going to be like, well, now what? Now what? I don't think that cadence necessarily has. Bungie still has to show they can do more in that regard, and I don't believe that necessarily will change quite yet. But it is one of the best PC shooters you can play easily, so long as you don't expect it to be the final game in your life. So yeah, Destiny 2 Forsaken. I'll shut up now. I've been talking so goddamn much, Wes. I just played so goddamn much, and
so many games.
Get it off my chest. Thank you for just like, this is just a vent session, therapy session for me.
We got so many more games coming out over the next few months too.
I know, man.
This fall is going to be crazy.
So busy. Well, let's answer some questions.
Let's
do some questions.
Questions.
You can always tag us in Twitch chat, and we'll get your questions as soon as we can. That's tag PC Gamer in Twitch chat, and we'll answer whatever questions you got about video games. But we do prioritize questions from our Discord, PC Gamer Club Discord. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to club.pcgamer.com. It's a cheap monthly subscription that supports us directly. It gets you a couple of cool benefits: an ad-free experience on the site, free game each month, priority access to beta codes we get for new and upcoming games, a digital subscription to the mag, the RPG handbook that we made last year, high-res glossy images of Tub Geralt, that we might have to throw Wide Geralt into there at some point. Maybe we can talk to the modder and get some high-res Wide Geralt images, and an invite to the club Discord, obviously, which is a pretty cool community we have. Okay, question time. I like this. JBJ Blaze asks, between this and next month, sort of as part of my 22nd birthday present to myself, happy upcoming birthday, I'm finally upgrading my first sort of custom build from originally store-bought, well, okay, this is a question. Did not complete that sentence, but he bought an HP.
You can do it. You can read it.
Well, the question just hangs right there, but the sentence hangs right there. But he bought an HP Pavilion in December 2012, which I used to do with I get my parents to buy like a Compaq or a Dell, and I would like just save up for a GPU that worked with it, which I've since added 2 hard drives to, but nothing else. So he's gonna get a new PC. What was your guys' experience? What was your experience building your first beast of a computer? Is the long-winded question I'm asking. When's the first time you ever built a big ol' your first beastly PC?
My first like legit build was in 2011. Nice. Actually. It was kind of late. So in college, I was thinking about buying one, or like I wanted a gaming PC. I had like a laptop that had like an okay laptop graphics card for the time, but wasn't that great. So I decided I wanted a desktop gaming PC, and a friend of mine had built a system for probably like $1,500 or something like that the year before. He built like a pretty expensive PC, and he wanted to either build a new system or get rid of it and do something else. So he was like, well, I'll sell you this one for like, I think it was like 800 or something. and you can pay me like in chunks, because I was just like living off
Nice.
student loans. And so I paid him like $400 for it like in the spring, and then another 400 in the fall or something. So I bought that from him, and that ended up being my system for a good few years. And then in 2011 I went to buy a like, I think I got a new graphics card or something for it, and then it didn't fit in the case, or I think it fit in the case, but it didn't work with the power supply. The power supply didn't have like an 8-pin. So then I went to get a new case, and I ended up just building a whole new system before long. So that was when the i5 2500K came out, Sandy Bridge, and that was like an amazing CPU for the price, really, really good. And that lasted me about 6 years, I think.
Damn. That's a good deal.
Kept it until just a couple of years ago, and I did some upgrades here and there, but that was my i5 2500K, Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, had an AMD graphics card, and a few other,
Nice.
odds and ends in there. 120 gig SSD, because they were expensive at the time.
I remember those were sought after.
Yeah.
Nice, man.
So that was my first big build.
I can't remember what year mine was exactly. They all blend together now, but it was in college too. I couldn't afford to do it in high school, besides retrofitting my parents' PCs. But I think what kickstarted was like I won a CPU, not one I wanted. I won one. It was more of like a production like CPU. I forget why, some raffle. So I flipped that in combination with some money I'd saved up. I was working in like an IT office at the university full of like fellow PC building nerds playing the original Dota mod all the time and all that kind of shit. And flipped that, and I think I bought I don't remember all my components, but the i7 line just came out, and I splurged on an i7 for no real reason. I got I think I had a GTX 480. Was that? Yeah. That time.
That's a card.
It was pretty good at that point. Big old chassis. Gosh, I don't remember anything else about it, but it served me well for about 5 years, something like that. I think actually right up until before I moved out to start working at PC Gamer, like three or 4 years ago. It was my constant companion. So yeah, I miss that. Miss that computer. Now it's my parents'.
Did you play the original Dota mod on?
Oh yeah. Hell yeah, man.
You were a Dota guy.
Well, I was a casual. They called me Dota Jesus because I just like would always throw myself into the in front of people, not knowing what I was doing. These guys were like super hardcore Dota people, and I would just show up to their LAN parties and be like, "Can I play?" And be like, "Oh, who wants James? Who wants James?" Okay.
Dota Jesus is a much kinder description for that than feeder, which is what I would have expected them to say.
I was a feeder, one of the OG feeders. Next question. So, I'm not sure you've talked about this yet, but quick thoughts on it. This is from Janrin. So the IOC president said that esports are too violent to be considered for the Olympics, and I want to know what you think about that, Wes. Do you have a stake in this either way?
Interesting.
I personally don't care. Like I don't feel like esports need to be represented at the Olympics. Like I just don't see the desire or
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think saying esports and traditional sports are different does not have to be a slight against esports.
No.
I find it a very different kind of the vibe of the Olympics and what kinds of competitors are there and what they're doing versus esports feels very different to me, and I feel like it's not watchable in the same way. Like they're very different spectator sports. I kind of feel like they can do just fine on their own, not being parts of the Olympics. But as for the violence thing, I don't know. That's interesting, I guess. It's not. I don't know how much less violent is hockey than
right.
than Dota.
yeah, it's all I don't know, like it's a very wide blanket to throw over all esports, and it's probably coming from someone who a quote coming from someone who maybe doesn't have the greatest understanding of what all games are and you know what all esports games specifically are. So I mean, like I don't necessarily blame him for saying that, but also like again, I don't think it matters to me whether the Olympics has esports or not. I'm not. It's not a
Yeah,
hill
I
I'm
think
trying to
that's.
die
I
on.
think I'm. It's kind of a shrug for me too.
Yeah. One more question. Let me read this here. Chris, no, two questions. Chris, 86. Prompted by the Horizon 4 demo, now that all Xbox exclusives are also coming to PC, is there actually any exclusive game you anticipate or that you have played already? So, any exclusive game you anticipate coming to PC that you are anticipating? Well,
I think he means like what would have been an Xbox exclusive that's now
yes.
guaranteed to come to PC. I mean, they bought Ninja Theory. Microsoft bought Ninja Theory, so it'll
Oh,
be
that's
interesting
right.
to see what they do next. And I'm glad that it will be on PC.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, kind of Halo Infinite. I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Halo Infinite. What the heck can you do with Halo now? And that's a very. Do
You make it infinite, James. That's what you do.
you think they're gonna make Halo Destiny?
No, I don't think
No,
so.
no. I think that would be a bad idea. I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. The exclusive, like, I just don't. If it's not on PC, I don't tend to really think about it too much. I'm excited for more Gears of War. I guess like those are just like I think I played through a good chunk of four with you. Did I? Am I misremembering?
You might have.
I don't remember. But those are just big dumb games that are fun to play through the
The
campaign.
new one looked like it was taking a very God of style kind
Yeah.
of reinvention. That's interesting to me because I when I reviewed Gears 4, I thought it was pretty boring, like in terms of um, creatively. Like
Mm.
it was a game I had played, multiple times
Yeah.
before with
Yeah.
very little different. It was big production value, like pretty, made very well, but kind of bereft of anything creatively new and different. So the new one will be a really good testament to what they can do when they kind of decide to reinvent a series that it
Yep.
has a very established formula at this point.
I'm bummed Spider-Man, the Insomniac Spider-Man won't be a PC thing ever.
Yeah, that's too bad.
It's too bad because I played a lot of Spider-Man games on PC as a kid growing up. And I like Spider-Man a lot, even though he's a cop. But whatever. Thanks for the question. It was Chris86. Buttface Jones. Gross oversimplifications incoming. When I was growing up being a, quote, gamer, excuse me, when I was growing up, being a, quote, gamer was associated with being a dork. Now, being a, quote, gamer is associated with being a red pill basement sociopath. Will there ever be a time when it's cool to be a gamer? Here, it's a trick question, man. It's a don't don't identify as a gamer. Like no one should identify as like a. I'm not a movier. Like, are you a movier? It's like these.
Was that a question to me or just like a
Yeah,
message?
I mean, it's just like it's a weird thing that associated like people need to attach their identity to video games, and I love video games. They are a significant part of my life because they're part of my job. They're part of they're a hobby I love and have known for most of my life, but they are like a piece of my life. The only people I might call a gamer is like someone who is literally a pro gamer or something like that. Like it bothers me that like the average person needs to identify themselves as a professional consumer of media, and maybe that's where like this religious alignment with what are really like many of which are products designed to like get you to pay for to be paid for, and designed with that in mind. Like it bothers me that that's a thing people just tie themselves to, and And I think we need to maybe back away from that. Butt face, you're a gamer in my eyes, but you don't need to worry about ever being a gamer.
It's something, it's something that I think for me changed more as I got older and became a little more aware of. And it's not even that I probably spend less time playing games than I did when I was in college, but it's not that I like them less. It's that I partially have kind of become aware of that there's more to me than just the things that I like, even though most of my conversations with my friends are dominated by pop culture and the movies that we like, and most of the way that I hang out with friends and like so most of my closest like friend relationships are built around playing games together. But I don't feel like a need to like defend the gamer label. Like, some people suck, some people are great. You don't need to try to fit into a group and have that group define who you are and try to define what that group is. Just let different people be different, and be aware that that stigma, don't feel hurt if someone calls gamers basement dwelling, whatever it was, because that doesn't mean you are that. Hopefully, you are if you're a good person or not. I hope, and don't feel like that blanket thing has to apply to you, but recognize that there are people that it does apply to, and you don't need to try to like rescue your hobby from them. Just be better and different.
There you go. There you go. Just be better. And if you are better and set an example, then maybe the general idea of what a gamer is will change. I don't know. Just be a good person. Boom. Be a good person. Life lessons at the end of the show. Be good. Be good. Be good. That's all the time we have for today. That's pretty much all the questions. I'll save yours, Stabby McStab because I like that one about physics. Again, the show is not going to be around in its traditional form or time for, I don't know, the better part of a month. So I apologize for that. I do hope, again, we're going to have game streams at this time, 1 p.m. Pacific, every week, if I can get them set up, and they should be set up. And I hope to put out some audio podcasts and do, like, next week, hopefully do an RTX special with Jared. But don't be alarmed. The show is still going to be going on, and it's going to be coming back, and everything will be normal again. Just a busy time. A lot of change happening.
More video games. We got to play the games, and then we're going to talk about them. Just we don't quite know when.
Yeah. And again, if you're trying to catch up on all shows, twitch.tv/PCGamer is where you can catch us live, 1 p.m. Pacific time. YouTube.com/PCGamer for the VOD after the fact, or PCGamer.com/tag/podcast for the RSS feed, iTunes, and our archive of shows so far. And until, I guess that does it. Until, God, what was my tagline, Wes? I forgot. Oh, yeah. Until next week, never forget the power of play.
Game on.
Game on. Bye, everyone.